Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you Tripp Lanier, and let me tell you about him. He is a professional coach, author of the book, This Book Will Make You Dangerous, and host of the New Man podcast, Beyond the Macho Jerk and the New Age Wimp, which for over a decade has been downloaded millions of times. Since 2005, he spent thousands of hours coaching people all around the world to get out of the rat race, become an authority in their field, and make a great living doing the work they were put on this earth to do. Over the years, he's designed several businesses to support simple lifestyle focused on freedom, ease, meaning, and fun. Tripp is the host of the New Man podcast, interviewing hundreds of experts and authors. And at the age of 23, Tripp created one of the first digital video post-production companies in the Southeast. To support his music career and love for travel, he crafted TV shows and commercials for national and regional clients. Wanting to align his personal values and his work in the world, he sold the company after 12 years to become a professional coach. And he also is a world-renowned worked with the world-renowned philosopher Ken Wilber as the co-director of the Integral Institute's Arts Center. So today we're going to talk about 3 things that get you unstuck. We all have had that moment in our life. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Tripp Lanier. Tripp.
Hi, Vicki. Thank you so much.
So
I was like,
excited.
where did you get this information? I was like, I forgot about a lot of that stuff.
You have a great website. You do. You do have a great website. Sometimes it does feel odd to have people talk about you. It's like, oh, wait, I did live that.
Yeah. This was a lifetime ago. A lot of that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So today we're going to just get a little bit background. First 2 questions are always easy ones for you. The first is, where do you call home? Where do you live?
We live in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina.
Oh, I know Wrightsville. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so I gave, as you said, a lot of history, if you will, about who you are. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your backstory, that, what was your journey like that led you to what you're doing today, and how has it been impactful for you?
I was fortunate enough to be delusional to think that I could start a business right after college. I went to art school, and so I started a business right after. How delusional can you be? And I was very fortunate that I did well with that, and I had designed that company to essentially fund and empower me to have a lifestyle that I wanted to have. I wasn't into the rat racing thing. I was very much into, what do I need to create? Music, what do I need to be able to travel? What do I need to be able to do the things that I enjoy doing? And through that period in my 20s, I really got more and more in touch with what I cared about, what I felt like I was on this planet to do. And that was actually a very uncomfortable process. It wasn't something I found in books. I went through a very difficult period. And coming through that period, I started to realize how out of alignment the life that I was creating was, how out of alignment it was with the values that I had. And so I essentially just wanted to close that gap. I wanted not just to be able to spend more time doing the things that I loved or that I felt that were meaningful for me. But I also wanted to create a career where I felt like I was making a positive impact and
Mm.
empowering others. And so I was a retreat junkie. I was doing all this kind of spiritual and personal growth stuff and kind of crazy things like that. And someone was like, you'd be a great coach. And I was like, what is that? What are you talking about? I was like, well, essentially you just have these deep conversations with people and help them kind of figure out what they want and then they go create it in their lives. And I was like, you could get paid to do that. And so that essentially started me on that path, and sold the business and moved to Colorado and met my wife. And, that started a whole new trajectory. And since then it's just been course correcting and learning and growing as my values grow and as my wisdom grows and my experiences grow, just trying to do the best I can to keep things aligned.
So interesting, as you talked about being in art school, and sometimes I think people don't align artists with leaders. But I'm married to an artist and a family full of artists, and I truly think that they are aligned. So how has having that right brain, left brain thing helped you be a better coach?
I see coaching as a creative process. And, if we can be bold with our creativity, let's say, whether it's with a canvas or a computer or a guitar or whatever it is, we can often give ourselves permission to be bold there. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to be bold in those places. But I loved working with people that can have an area of their life where they feel okay to be bold. And then say, okay, well, what if we just expanded that area to include your career, to include your relationships, to include the lifestyle that you want to have? Because essentially there's a point where we go across this line like, no, I've got to play by these rules now, and I'm supposed to be this person, and I've got to play this role and all of that kind of stuff. And the more that we do that, the more I think we cut ourselves off from our soul. I think we cut ourselves off from our essence. We cut ourselves off from our vitality. And so it makes a lot of sense that we would feel stuck and we'd feel drained and we feel trapped in these places because they're not essentially us. They're not expressing that. And so the creativity, approaching that with creativity instead of, let's say, I think a lot of coaching is kind of rooted in competitiveness and achieving. No problem there. Like there's a time to be an achiever. There's a time to be a competitor. There's a time to be a warrior. But I think a lot of times if it feels stuck or we feel like it's not quite working, maybe we're bringing the wrong version of ourselves to this challenge. And so a creative mindset allows us to zoom out, to be rather wide, and then to listen within and say, yeah, what wants to happen here? What's already trying to come through me and as me? And how can I just listen and honor that instead of, how do I keep up with that guy? How do I make sure I do X plus 10 this next year? Those types of things. Because the theory is if we do that kind of stuff, we're going to feel more free. We're going to feel more alive. We're going to feel more at peace. We're going to feel more love. And usually that's not the case. But if we're willing to listen to more of who we are and then find, have the rubber meet the road that aligns with that, I've found that that's generally where we feel more of that aliveness that we're looking for.
You talked about being bold, but I think as an artist too, you also have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. As an artist who paints things, your piece is you, a piece of you, of which, and you have to be really vulnerable to be able to put that out there and know that it's okay, that if someone doesn't like it, it's okay. If it's not perfect that first time, it's okay. And I think that is also important as a coach to be able to inform your coaching clients that it's okay to be vulnerable, that vulnerable will lead you to being bold.
Yeah. Yeah. In the book that I wrote, this book will make you dangerous. What feels dangerous to us in our cushy modern lifestyle is anything that disrupts our discomfort, anything that gets us into uncertainty. And then the last one is anything that might make us look like a moron or invite criticism. And so if we're willing to go into those places and be bold and be playful and get over ourselves, I think we find a reservoir of power that we're not used to dealing with there. And so a big part of my work is like, what if we were a little more bold here? What if we were a little more playful? What if we could get over ourselves here?
Yeah.
And we just find that we're not that fragile in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have to remind myself of this. I wrote this book for me. I wrote this book to remind me of the way of being that works for myself. And so it's just also a lot more fun
Yeah.
when we drop this thing like, oh, it's so important and I've got to get it right. It's like, nobody really cares.
Sometimes when I'm teaching public speaking to kids and adults, I will have them do improv because it
Hmm.
is forcing them to do things that they, you know, may be making a fool of themselves, but really it just is to just get over themselves, you know?
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
is hard. It's really hard. I
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
cavalier about
Yeah.
that.
No, it
It's
is,
really hard. Yeah.
but it's important to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Just imagine the power and the real freedom. I think a lot of us think freedom comes from once I have a certain amount of money, once I have a certain amount of status, then I can live in my castle and nothing can get me. And essentially, you kind of put yourself in a jail, right? I've got to
Yeah.
maintain this. I can't disrupt this. But the real freedom is I can deal with it. Whatever comes along, I'll be able to deal with it.
Absolutely. So your website calls out 3 areas. So um, uh, that if you're a coach, you might get stuck. But I think it probably is true in any profession. So we're going to first talk about the feeling of being invisible.
Right.
Share more on that.
Well, you touched on this earlier about the vulnerability. And I've worked with a lot of people who are fantastic at what they do. They even have wonderful gifts to give, but they don't bring it to the world. They're kind of hoping that the world is going to figure it out and come knock on their door. And so for a lot of us, especially in the coaching world, we are helpers, we are givers in that regard. And we're kind of thinking, gosh, if I just do another training, if I just read these other books, if I just go through this other program, someone's going to put kind of connect all the dots and realize I'm really amazing and come and knock on my door. And so there's this invisibility factor that can show up. And there's also an element of we become invisible when we kind of blend in with the crowd. Here's what is safe. Here's how a coach or a executive or a whatever is how this is how you're supposed to act. And this brings us back to the work that I enjoy doing with people is like really drawing out our essence. Like what makes you unique? Not to be unique, not to be the peacock, but just like, what do you really care about? You're going to freaking die. Like, what is this life really about? What do you take a stand for? What do you kneel for? Let's draw that out. Let's draw that out so that you know that. And then we can start to fly that. We can start to fly that flag. It's not a performance. It's just essentially like, hey, this is me. This is what I stand for. This is what I care about. And your people will find you. Like they'll be like, that's my person. You're my person. You align with my values. I want to work with you. And I find that that's far more valuable. And those connections that we make are far more powerful when we're willing to own who we are instead of getting really good at playing a role.
Yeah, so true. So the next area is related to connection skills. And I think of myself not as an influencer, but a connector. I think that's how I was helped in my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why do coaches sometimes have such a challenge in finding people who are willing to pay for the coaching they need? It's it goes back to your invisible comment too, that it would just come, that
Right.
magically it would just come. And, I know that I would not have gotten where I am without people that have fed into me the things that I needed to hear and see.
Hmm. Yeah. When I think of connection, it's not just being visible,
Mm-hmm.
but it's being accessible and it's being impactful.
Okay.
Nothing in there is about being convincing. Convincing is sales, right? I'm going to convince you that you need to work with me. I'm going to convince you that I'm important and I'm impressive. And look at my bio and how great it is. And you should work with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the connecting thing is more of a receptive thing. Like, let me know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
What's happening in your world? And maybe greatest service I can provide you is to connect you with somebody else. Like, I know the perfect person for you. I know the perfect book for you. I know the perfect resource for you. And so it's essentially showing up, being in the world and being impactful in that way, but relaxing the need to be impressive. And I think that, when I work with a lot of younger folks, they seem to be much more influenced by the social media stuff. So there's this need to be impressive, but they miss this connection piece. They miss the ability to actually go deep with folks and generate and really create a connection. I had somebody recently hire me. They said they listened to my podcast for 10 years before they reached out to me. Now that's 10 years of listening and me being in their world and helping them. I have no idea of that, but then they're like, I'm finally ready. I want to do this. And so I wasn't impressing them. I wasn't convincing them. I wasn't like, sign up today. Oh, there's only one spot left. There was none of that gaming. It was just like, yeah, just keep showing up and just keep being helpful.
Yeah. And that's really key. As I teach leadership too, that whenever I'm talking to people that are managers or team leads, you first have to get to know your people and what is important to them. And you can't really start to make a difference until you know and build a relationship. It isn't, just because I have this title, I can make things wonderful. You really have to have relationships in every aspect of our lives. Get
Right.
to know your clients, get to know your family, your friends. That's what makes you memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it builds trust, right?
Yeah.
If I'm someone that just comes in and I fill up the entire space and then leave, it's like, why would I trust that person? I mean, they might be impressive, but would I actually want to open up to them?
Yeah. Yeah, you can have the best resume, the best bio in the world, but if I don't resonate with you, if I don't connect with you, I'm not going to want to do work with you.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So the third thing is the feeling of isolated and burned out, and a lot of people that are driven um, are sometimes feeling that they're alone on an island, and they're working so hard that they do get burned out.
Mm-hmm.
So share some examples of how of people you've worked with or experiences that you've had, that really, how did you guide them to overcome this feeling of being isolated and burned out?
Yeah, well, it's very common in leadership positions. It's very common with coaches. It's very common with helpers. We get to a place where our role is to be there for others, and there might be a power differential where their boss or where their coach or whatever that is. And so it's not a mutual thing. We might receive something from being able to help people. We might receive something that's meaningful, but we might not get our needs met or all of our needs met. And so it can become a habit, and I'm raising my hand here. It can just become a habit to stay in that role. But when it's time for me to be helped or for that person in that position to be helped, it's a lot harder if we don't have community, if we don't have people that are willing to challenge us and support us. That's very vulnerable. We like these leadership positions. We get to be at the top. We don't get challenged very often. And so I'm at my best when I have people in my life that are willing to challenge me in a loving way. Hey, I think you're getting a little off track here. I think you're getting a little isolated here. I think you're starting to believe your own you're drinking your own Kool-Aid kind of thing. It's great to have those people. I don't want to be wrong any longer than I need to be. I don't want to be off track any longer than I need to be, but that's vulnerable. A lot of us don't want to put ourselves in that position to have those folks in our lives. But I see this, like I said, I see this with executives. It's very, very common.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not really a safe environment where they are. They never know who's trying to take their position, and they never know. There's always kind of this chess game that's happening. And so there's not a lot of opening of the kimono and saying, hey, I'm having a hard time with ABC. How do you deal with this? How would you go about doing this? And there's just it's much easier to just kind of close it up and go home. And they may not talk to their partner about those things, certainly not about to their kids or whatever. And I think increasingly we're having a harder time with friendships as we get more and more kind of removed from one another. So
Yeah, and it's that feeling that, well, I have to always know what's happening or know how to deal with something, and that feeling afraid to say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the best problems are solved when you say, hey guys, let's work together to figure this out because I have no idea what
Yeah.
we should do. And we need more than one brain to work on this.
And we're back to the get over yourself, right? Which
Yeah,
is like,
get over
wow,
yourself.
oh, I've got to have all the answers here instead
Yes,
of
like,
what's best for this challenge. Let me get out of the way. I don't know
yeah,
what the best thing is, so
yeah,
let's bring in some help.
yeah.
And that willingness to kind of to relax that a bit.
So, what was the driving force for you to write that book? This book will make you dangerous. And who was it initially targeted for? And was there any surprises as to who is resonating with it?
So I've been doing podcasts since 2007, I believe. So we're getting closer to 20 years now,
Mm,
which means I get a lot of books. I get a lot of
yeah,
books sent to me,
yeah.
and I appreciate the work that goes in. But there's a lot of people that just write books that are essentially calling cards, and they're really not worth much more than the paper they're printed on. And I throw a lot of books in the trash. I'm just not interested in them. Someone approached me and was like, "Hey, you should write a book." And I was like, "Not interested. I can reach more people with my podcast, blah blah blah." And plus, I throw so many books in. I was a little like, I throw so many books in the trash, kind of thing. He goes, "Well, what's the book you wouldn't throw in the trash?" I was like, "Ooh, that's a good question." And I see a lot of books that come out. They're very high level. They've got a lot of words and they use a lot of jargon, but I don't know if they actually really hit us on an emotional level. And in my work, I deal with a lot of men, and it's like, let's get to the point. What really matters, what really works. And I wanted something that was fun. Most of the stuff in the personal growth field has been largely for women in the past. I mean, when I got started, Oprah was still on the air. So there was Oprah's book club. There wasn't a lot of stuff for men back then. And so it was wanting to write the book that I wish I could have had back when I was really starting this journey. But then also just seeing the suffering that so many of us have when we're stuck in that rat race mentality that I just need more of X, Y, and Z, and then everything's going to be fine. I just see so much suffering for folks on that path after a while. And so I wanted to say, hey, here's what I've learned after working with people at the highest level. It's not all it's chalked up to be. It doesn't mean you can't go do some fantastic things, but what if we help you connect with your values and what really matters to you in this lifetime? And so that's what I was aiming to do. So I wrote it for men primarily. Of course, lots of women read it, and I get tons of information, tons of emails and stuff from women too, appreciating it as well.
Awesome. So you have some great podcast episodes out of there. I was perusing through some of them. Were there any favorites that may help the audience in their journey to becoming more confident and getting unstuck and really taking themselves to the next level? What are some I don't know if there's a recent one. I know you did one just the other day. You've had some great guests too.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything. Of course, it's like I don't really look in the rearview mirror that much, so I can't.
So who would you like to interview?
Who would I love to interview?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
I'll tell you who I'm scared to interview.
Ah, that's a good one.
And I've been thinking about this. My dad. My dad and I get along great, but most of
Uh-huh.
our relationship is we just kind of keep it pretty light. And there's just things about his life that I haven't asked him, and I've liked to add. He's kind of held behind things about his time at the war in Vietnam, and like, who is he really, kind of stuff. And so I feel a weight there of like, you're gonna wish you interviewed him. You're gonna wish you talked to him one day if you don't take that. And so even as I say this now, I can feel like, I can feel that like, that feels dangerous to reach out. And of course he'd be a yes, but I wouldn't publish it. But getting curious with him, I think if I didn't talk to him in that way, like really push it a bit more, I would regret that.
Yeah, one of the goals that I have is I meet people all the time that as you get to know them, and they have great stories of their lives. And I think, oh my gosh, you should share that. And so one of the offerings I have is I'll interview you 5 or 6 times, record
Mm,
it, and give you the transcripts, and you write your book. You have your
mm,
legacy. I
yeah.
think, what a great gift for them to be able to share their story with the
I,
world.
I have to say that I've had some very well-known people on my program, and there's lots of people that have PR folks that help them out. But I have to say some of the most interesting and impactful conversations were with people that were
Yeah,
you don't know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the reason I would just come across them at an event or something, I
Mhm.
would meet them and I'd hear part of their story, and it was just like this is really helpful.
Yeah.
This is amazing. One that comes to mind was a guy that I met, and he'd had a rough time in his 20s with drugs and stuff, got his life on track, got married, had 2 sons. The relationship, the divorce was happening. It was kind of falling apart, and he got a divorce, and then had to come out to his sons,
Mm.
and just how terrified he was. Like, this is going to
Yeah.
be the end of my relationship with my sons, kind of thing. Of course, the sons were like, so what? It's like, no
Yeah.
big deal.
What's the
But for him, like, this, all the stuff that he'd been through, and so much shame around the drugs and his lifestyle before that was so dangerous, and then getting things turned around. But just hearing that, I was like, that's the story we need. Because I think when we talk to the people who are kind of larger than life, it's
Mhm.
hard to relate. It's hard to
Yeah,
relate. Like,
that's
they're kind
right.
of, they can be superhuman. I think we can listen to them and be like, oh, okay, that's cool. That person does this. But when you hear the story about your neighbor 2 doors down doing
Mhm.
something courageous, you're like, oh, I could
It's
do that.
impactful.
Right. There's something like
Yeah.
I think I could do that. Or it
Yeah.
challenges us. If he could do
Yeah.
that, then maybe I need to lean into it as
Yeah.
well. So I've loved those. I love finding those diamonds in those
Yeah.
conversations. And of course, they're not trying to promote anything. There's not some thing
No.
that goes along with you. It's just like, here's an amazing story.
Yeah. And I think because of all the challenges that we have in our life thrown at us at it's just nice to hear, okay, we're not the only one.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that other people do this, and yes, they got through it. I think that's important, that you can get through it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. When I've
keep,
been in men's groups, and I think 80% of the relief is like, I'm not the only guy that's dealing with
yeah,
XYZ. It's like, no.
yay, yay.
Raise your hand if you're not doing this, and no
I
hands go.
know.
Like, it's just like everybody's dealing with this.
Yeah,
Everybody's dealing with this thing, and there's just this relief. Nothing in your life has changed other than I'm not the only one,
yeah.
and it's a wonderful feeling.
And I think too, it allows you to be vulnerable, and allows you to say, okay, I can pick myself up, and let's start something different. Let's
Yeah,
change our path.
I can just drop this Superman thing.
Yeah, no capes allowed.
Okay, it's just, we all know you're full of crap anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
we
right.
we get it. You're
Yeah,
not that guy, so you can
yeah.
relax that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, it's been so wonderful talking with you, and I hope that the audience has found that there are probably more than 3 steps to get unstuck, but really just remember that you are not, you don't need to be invisible,
mm,
that you need to be able to feel comfortable to connect with others. And if you feel isolated and burned out, there is always someone there that can
yeah.
help you.
And I'll just add this one piece, which is, if you have gifts to give and you're hiding them from the world,
Oh,
excuse my French, but you're being a dick.
yeah,
Like, bring your
yeah,
gifts. We need them. We need them.
yeah.
We need them.
And that will cause all of us to constantly reflect on because we are changing, we are growing and developing, and hopefully you're doing lifelong learning. And so your gifts will grow, your gifts will change,
Mm,
but you need to reflect on them. You need
yeah.
to be proud of them. I think sometimes we think, oh no, I'm just Vicki, but
Right.
no.
Yeah. Get out there. Bring them.
Yeah,
Please.
awesome.
Please.
So we're going to share my screen now for those of you that think, oh my God, I have to talk more with Tripp and see how he can help me. So I have his contact information. So the website is tripplanier.com. Again, tripplanier.com. That's TRIPPLANIER. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. You can thank him later. They're all his name, Tripp Lanier. So Facebook is Tripp Lanier, LinkedIn, Tripp Lanier, YouTube is at Tripp_Lanier, Instagram is Tripp Lanier, and Twitter is Tripp Lanier with initial caps. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tripp Lanier to tell you some of the things you might find on his website and where he may spend the most time for social media that could help you DM him quicker so you can connect.
Yeah. So yeah, if you visit the website, you can learn more about the coaching work that I do. You can learn more about This Book Will Make You Dangerous, which is available in Amazon all around the world, and Audible. And then also on the website, I've created a couple of videos, largely about some of the bigger challenges that we face, to give you a sense of the philosophy that I have and how I might work with people as well. And actually, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, so the best way is to just go to the website and shoot me an email.
Perfect. And do look at, he has lots of great YouTube videos out there, so do check out his YouTube if you want to have some time to see some great guests that he's interviewed. So Tripp, it's been just great having a conversation with you. You shared a lot of great insights, great stories, and I know that you're helping at least one person, probably more, in my audience. So thanks for being such a great guest.
Yeah, Vicki, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.